Okay, so here we go. Welcome, Oana, to Backhanded Chat. And what we're going to be discussing today is the life on the road of a professional tennis player.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a discussion which is split into four parts. It's going to go on a journey of what life is like on tour. Obviously, it's not going to be able to cover everything, but all of the things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And we'll look at the early years of when you started to get into tennis and how that developed from there. And we're going to look at tour life, traveling, and the places, the cultures that you go to. And then
hmm
we'll look at a little bit about the mind side of things, the dealing with adversity and the psychology of tennis. So let's get going. And what we'll do to begin with is we'll look into what you remember about when you first began tennis, when you first took it up, what made you interested in the sport, and how did you move on from there, and what sort of encouragement and support did you get?
Yeah. So, well, it's a nice story actually. I started when I was 5 years old, and my parents took me to. Actually, first they took me to gymnastics, and the coach from gymnastics told me that I'm not good at gymnastics. So at 5 years old, so I had to change sports. So they took me to tennis, and that's how I ended up playing professional tennis.
Oh, fantastic! So,
Yeah,
and then what was that? Was that just joining the club and then lessons and?
yeah. I joined the club, not in Bucharest because I'm not born in Bucharest. I joined it's a small city in the north of Romania, and then I went there. It was a quite good coach. I had a good coach at the beginning, and then I kept playing. I loved it. I loved being on court at 5 years old, and then I kept going. And at 10 years old, I moved to Bucharest with my parents. They sacrificed somehow their lives for me to play, to come to Bucharest and play tennis. And yeah, from 10 years old, I moved to Bucharest, and then I started practicing in the National Tennis Center. And since then, I'm there practicing there all the time. And yeah, that's how I started, and that's how I became a professional tennis player.
Okay, lovely. And so, what sort of sacrifices did your parents make?
Well, yeah, moving from a city where they had kind of everything. I would say they had a good life there, and sacrificing to move in another city for me. And yeah, all the time making it was a lot of money struggle for them, and because they are not high from a high class, like I'm not coming from a high class family, I'm coming from a medium level, I would say. So it was all the time a money struggle, but I think I think it was worth it for for me and for them. And yeah, that that was for my parents until now.
Oh, fantastic! And you're very passionate about writing as well. I know that you you document a lot of your sort of history and your matches, and how important is that to you? And is it something that's unique to yourself? Do you think it's something useful that other people could learn from? How it helps you?
Yeah, well, I think it's one of the biggest things that helped me throughout my career to write down, because I'm an overthinker, I would say. So I need to write down my thoughts. Uh, and that's since I was 14 years old, I was writing a lot. I don't know if it was diaries more, but I was writing a lot about my matches and how I was playing in my matches. And after every practice, I remember I had a coach that taught me this, and that I have to write down a lot after matches and before matches and after practices. So since I'm 14, I kept writing, and I I decided to start this blog because I love writing, and now I want to share a lot from my experience. I want to share with everyone so they can see, and also especially for the ones that are starting this career, and learn from not only from my experience, but I think it's a good example to what can happen on tour.
Yes, Court Chronicles, which is excellent, and it's it's very insightful, and you're always very honest. But it's got a because it's I mean I don't speak Romanian, but it's translated, and it's got a very natural sort of flow to it. It's a very sort of good narrative, and it really does give a lot of insight. But there's a lot of variety. I mean, you really do. You're very honest about the way that you feel when you're on tour. You talk about the good things and the bad things, which hopefully we can touch upon today. But yeah, it really is worth a read for anyone that's not seen that before. And it's yeah,
Yeah,
you do them quite. It's just every now and again, sort of. Is there a frequency?
I'm trying I'm trying to go into every subject that I think it's important for a tennis player and an athlete, and I want to um, yeah, to touch every subject and to write about it and to write my feelings and yeah, and my experience about it and how I think this can be handled in a good way.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's also there's a lot of I'd say there's a pool of young Romanian players at the moment, all sort of maybe like late teens, early 20s, who you'll know very well because you play a lot of the ITF events with them. But
Yeah.
it's a group that seem to all be developing at the same time and all pushing each other. And you must have experienced that too. And how important was that for you when you were growing up, having friends that you shared that sort of transition from juniors to seniors? What what would
Yeah,
sort of messages of that for you?
I think it's very important to have someone who has gone through this experience and can tell you how to handle some situations on the tour and to give you advice from their career. I think it's very important for the young ones to listen to them and not only listen but also take what they think it fits for them. Like uh, take the lessons and also put them in what they are going to bring on court and off court, because it's a lot about how you handle life off court as well and how you handle life on court, and there are a lot of sacrifices and struggles, and yeah, it's a long journey. So yeah, it's how you say, it's a process. It's a process, but not only as a tennis player, it's a process that you have to develop yourself as a person, and I think tennis helps you to develop yourself more as a person than you would develop like without doing a sport, I would say. So yeah, I want also through this blog for these young players to uh, to get the knowledge from that, but also to put in their um, yeah, in their experience, in their own experience, in their own personality, because it's very different. Some players are different, and we are all different. So some experiences and some ways of handling situations are different from one to another.
Yeah, very much so. And so that moves us sort of nicely on to the next section, which is about the actual tour life itself, the ITF events, and life is it's very different. I think if you're you know outside of the top 200, outside of the top 100, and
Mhm.
you're traveling on what's mainly ITF level tournaments, and I think certainly fans and people watching are disillusioned by what life for a tennis player is like, and it's seen as you're spending all year long playing a game essentially and going to all these beautiful countries, and there's almost like a bit of an ignorant view of why are you moaning so much, but it's hard life, isn't it? It's you're struggling to make a living, and you're dependent on prize money from one tournament to the next, and there's so many sort of other factors that are involved, and you've got to work around the flights and the I suppose trains and driving as well, getting from one place to another, and you've got to fit that into your routines. So,
Mhm.
do you like to talk about how that impacts on you and how that impacts on where you go to and how it impacts on your scheduling?
Yeah, I mean, uh, as I said, tennis is not about, and I'm always saying this, tennis is not about only tennis, it's a lifestyle, like uh, everyone says, it's a lifestyle, but you need to enjoy a lot of things. You need to love traveling because without this, you cannot be a professional tennis player because you travel like I would say 30 weeks out of 50 a year, and then you don't have so much time at home. So you need to enjoy this. You need to when you get to a tournament, you need to make yourself comfortable there so you can enjoy being in a tournament. You need to adapt very fast to every situation and to every court and to every different condition, like weather, you have courts, you have clubs, you have jet lag, you have a lot of countries, a lot of different countries, a lot of surfaces, and yeah, that's what I call adversity and how you adapt to it, and that's what you need to do as a professional tennis player. So it's not about only playing tennis. It's about a lot of different things, and this goes into the fighting spirit. Like you need to be a big fighter so you can survive this life, I would say, and to succeed also.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, jet lag is a massive one, surely, because I suppose flights and travel plans and things like that, that's an external factor which isn't always in your control because everyone knows that they can be delayed, weather can be, but that can really play a part in maybe you might miss a tournament altogether, or you may arrive late at a tournament and not have time to prepare. So yeah, that must make it very difficult. Um,
Yeah, I mean, personally, I haven't had a situation where I was late for a tournament, because I'm organizing quite well the the traveling, and I might say I was a bit lucky, but I had situations, I had flights when I was coming back home that got canceled, or I couldn't fly because of the weather changes. But it happened to me only when I came back from tournament, so I would say that I was lucky that nothing happened when I was going for a tournament, and I hope it will not happen
no,
in the future.
let's hope not. And what about languages? I mean, obviously your English is excellent. You speak it better than me, to be honest. So, how many languages do you speak?
Well, I speak English. Well, it's a bit kind of difficult. No, it's not difficult for me to understand you now, but you have different accents, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to. Yeah,
I'm
but
afraid to speak slowly too, because I know
yeah,
that can
yeah,
be
yeah.
a
but I still it's okay, I can handle it. And yeah, I speak a little bit of Italian because I was practicing in Italy, so I can speak some Italian. And I was playing a lot of team matches there, and I have a very good relationship with the club there.
Yeah.
And yeah, Romanian. So yeah, and a little bit of Spanish, I would say, but I haven't practiced it so much. So yeah, that's it.
Do you ever make if you go to a country maybe for the first time or one that you don't travel to very much, do you make a conscious effort to, if you don't speak the language, to try and like learn phrases, or do you sort of rely on English, or do you like try to learn certain,
Mm,
I don't know, maybe
no, most of the time I rely on English. Uh, I mean, a lot of countries, a lot of people speak English nowadays. There are certain countries where they don't, but it's okay. We handle it. We handle every situation.
another, I mean, obviously there's the sort of the downside of it is probably the like we said, the jet lag, the traveling, and driving from tournaments to an and then financing
Yeah.
those journeys too. And that could be, that can, have an impact on you, like not go into a tournament because you might not be able to book a flight, or there may not be a flight. So that's all sort of negative side of it. But what about, I mean, there are some very beautiful countries out there. I mean, are there particular countries that you like going to, and does that have an influence on the schedule sometime? And is there places that you like to sort of explore when you can,
Yeah,
when you're
I
not playing?
mean, now I'm really trying to enjoy more, the life on tour. I'm I'm trying to visit as much as I can, but I mean, we don't have so much time. We just go from hotel to the club and then back. So when I have a day off, I'm trying to visit as much as I can. I was in Sweden these 2 weeks, so when I had days off, I was trying to go and visit museums and visit the capital, Stockholm. So I was trying more, than I was doing before my injuries. So we have like this is the nice part of traveling. Even though you are alone, I mean I'm alone most of the time, but I'm always trying to make a nice time for myself.
Lovely. You
Yeah.
You touched upon this earlier, actually, and it's a huge factor, and not just in tennis, but I think in life and whatever job people have, or even in their personal lives too. You mentioned sort of dealing with adversity, and it is a huge thing. And I think in specifically in terms of tennis, we more so the public have had an era in definitely men's and to some extent women's too, where there's been utter domination. There's been in men's tennis, there's been three of the sort of greatest players that have ever played the game all playing at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also on the women's side, there's been dominance by Serena Williams, and now
Right.
Iga Swiatek is picking up Grand Slams for fun as well. And I think that is also in an age where everything's so dependent on social media too. I think it's almost creates a false impression of what tennis is like, because I think they're superhumans. That's the exception, not the norm. And I, I think certainly people who don't know that much about the sport in general think that
Hmm.
what they normal. I mean, it's not normal for Rafa Nadal to win 14 French Opens. That's just insane. That's probably not going to happen again in maybe people's 4 or 5 lifetimes. It's just crazy that I mean, Djokovic winning what's 25 now, I think, and still playing, and
Yeah.
going to be a favourite for the Australian Open as well. It's just it's almost like it is real life, but it's almost like it's not real life. And I do think that it's fantastic, but it does create this sort of false impression. I think
Hmm.
I think that means the expectations on players, maybe from other people, and maybe on the players themselves, are possibly put
Yeah,
too
and for the young ones that are coming up and I can see that a lot of parents put this pressure on their kids, you know. I can see it a lot now because they see how top 10 players are playing and are winning and are but these are exceptions, you know, like as you said, you have this kind of player one in I don't know 50 years or something. So they are really exceptions, and this is not um I don't know, I think this is too, like, this is promoted too much, I would say, and you don't see the life behind, you know, where uh, the normal life of a, like, how is a normal life of a tennis player, like with the struggles, with not earning so much money, and not having the attention that they all have as top 10. But yeah, it's like this, as you said. It's not I would say it's it's reality, but reality for just a few people, you know.
Yeah. And the other huge factor, which again, it I think which impacted on the whole world, and it feels like it was a million years ago now, but it really wasn't. And we had the global pandemic, we had COVID, which I think for you personally, you were experiencing a really successful season in
Yeah,
2019 before the
yeah.
world sort of stopped really. And I think I believe you reached a career high then. You had a lot of wins on the board, but that must have been a huge impact. And I don't think, again, I don't think people looking on realize how much with tennis effectively stopping for what was probably 4 or 5 months, how much of an
Hmm.
impact that really had. I mean, there's multiple examples. I mean, we could be here all night, but I mean, one that sticks for me was a player like Elena Rybakina was really at her peak in 2019, early 2020, and then I
Hmm.
think she was the players that really suffered when returning to the tour. She's played again at high level now, but it took a long time to reach the levels that she reached again. And I don't think people really appreciate how much of an impact COVID had. And I think for a lot of the your generation and maybe players around about your age or perhaps a year or two younger than you, that was a critical part in their development. That's taken we talked about a journey and a process. That's taken away a good probably about a year or 18 months away from that development. And it's a horrible impact. So how what do you reflect on that? I mean, how hard was it for you personally to reboot after going through it?
uh well, as you said, I had a great season to 2019, and to be honest, I don't know what would have happened if it wasn't COVID for me. Like, maybe it was better, maybe it was not better, but yeah, during after COVID, I had a good season, and then I injured
Yeah.
my knee. So I think stopping from tennis like 2 months or 3 months, it was a big impact for on my body, you know, because stopping and then starting again, it influenced my health, because it's if you work out in your house, or a little bit of running, or you cannot compare to the effort you make in a match. So you cannot compare tennis practice with home workouts, you know. So I think this influenced my performance on my body a lot. So I wouldn't go to results, like I wouldn't go to what would have happened as a result wise, but I would totally say that maybe it would have been better for my body if we wouldn't stop.
Okay, lovely. And that's
And yeah, and I think a lot of players got and I don't know if they got injured, but it was tough mentally as well, you know, like mental health. It was tough.
Yeah, I mean, you've got that. I mean, there's so many examples, but again, Paula Badoza springs to mind because there was all that difficulty in Australia and how the lockdown, because that was when the tournament was happening, but there were so many restrictions on the hotels and everything, and that's that would
Exactly.
have on her for mental health. So
The
yeah,
traveling was so much more difficult and everything. Like we had to do a lot of papers. Now, I mean, after a few years, you forget about those things. But now, when I remember, I was making a lot of tests, you know, like COVID test, and everywhere you had to go, you needed a lot of papers to travel. You need the vaccine, you need everything. So yeah, it was weird. It was a weird period.
yeah, and again, that's on top of what would be a lot of paperwork normally, wouldn't it? On a lot of tests and whatnot. It's in addition to what you would go through on a day-to-day
Mhm.
basis. One, I suppose that's a bit of a depressing topic. So
Yeah.
moving on, um, you this year you've had an absolute spectacular summer. It's probably better that you describe it yourself. To be honest, I mean, just, when you played several events in Romania, you went through the rankings. So just I mean, to start with, just talk about that yourself. Put it into your own words because it was a really great
Mhm.
run that you had.
Sorry.
No, just said, do you want to like describe sort of
Mhm.
what happened over those sort of 2 months or so?
Uh, yeah, I would love to describe it because when I injured myself, I knew I would lose all my points, kind of all my points. So I was ranked 1,000, and I wanted to prove myself if I'm still able to play at the level that I could play before, you know. And I knew it felt like a mountain. It felt like I was climbing a mountain, you know. I was in May. I remember I was in May and I was ranked 1,000, and I was thinking like, I really do it? Like, am I still strong to play again and to go out there and perform and prove myself and others that I can still play at a good level. So this was a big challenge for me this year and after I got injured, and I had such a, I don't know, I would say I was very ambitious because I really wanted, I don't know, I wanted maybe top 600 at the end of the year, because I knew I had to be realistic as well. And yeah, I worked a lot this summer. But in the same time, it was so much more different than before injuries, because I was enjoying I was enjoying this year more than I was ever enjoying being on court. So yeah, I'm grateful for what happened with me and what is happening with me, and that I found somehow a balance um, on this in this life, you know, in this on the tour. So yeah, it's been an interesting year, and because I've started from zero, like I had nothing, I had almost no ranking, I had almost no money, so I had to work a lot to play a lot of team matches in the beginning and prize money tournaments, and then go on tour, and then get my ranking back. So yeah, but I had a lot of people around me that helped me. So yeah, I'm grateful for what happened to me, and I'm grateful for the people that I have around now. So I hope I will keep climbing those rankings in the future.
Well, you will very much.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that people don't realize is I think a lot of people blindly look at rankings, and there's so many other factors to what's behind someone's ranking. I mean, you said yourself you've been injured, so your ranking is not really reflective of your ability.
Hmm.
But there's head to heads and there's matchups, and there's like certain players that irrespective of the ranking, that some players just find awkward, don't they? And you've had one or two players where you've kept facing them over and over again because you're playing on the same events. And yeah, there's so many other things. I think the other thing with ranking is it's not just injuries. You've got a lot of young players that are coming up from juniors that won't necessarily have ranking because they don't have any points to defend. So, I mean, famously, we've got Emma Raducanu, who just went miles ahead and sort of went to level one, and it's now sort of looking back and sort of rebuilding the process her way. But yeah, you don't. There's so much talent like coming through. Sometimes the rankings are very misleading. But
Hmm.
yeah, and that's all part of it too. I mean, you did play. It was Patricia Tick that you played quite a few times, and it was in the final, and then you met in the second round of the next tournament, I believe, which is a bit unlucky. And then I think you had to go through qualifying, didn't you? In the next event, and
Hmm.
then you beat her. I think it's the third time, and was it as many weeks that you played her, and that was from set down. So that must have been very stressful. But to come across against that same player, one that you faced in the final, and then and again, people don't really appreciate this very much. You faced them in the final, and then you faced them like in an early round,
Yeah.
only so later. That must be extremely stressful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, one week you are playing a final, and then the next week and the next day you have to refocus. You have to forget the final, like enjoy for a few hours, and then go to the next tournament, and then start focusing again on what you have to do next. So playing again the player you played 2 days ago, it's quite stressful. It's interesting in the same time because you have another chance. You have another chance to come with another tactic. You can do different things. So yeah, you have it's interesting but also stressful in the same time. But every time you need to look for solutions and you need to refocus and rebuild every match.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there must be a conflict. There must be part of you that thinks I don't want to play her again. I really don't
Right,
that too
right.
much. But there must be part of you. It's like having the demon and the angel on the shoulders, isn't it? There must be a part of you that thinks I want this person again because I don't want to get them, and I want to keep trying. But yeah, sometimes you must think it could be I'm not ready to beat this player yet. I need to work on certain things, but then you play them 3 or 4 days later. So yeah, it's fascinating and it must
Mhm.
really create a lot of mental conflicts.
Yeah, yeah, but you have to overcome them, you have thoughts and then you just have to let them go and then you have to focus on. I know it's what I'm saying now, it's a bit general, but this is kind of how it works because you have to let go the thoughts and then focus exactly on every point, on every game, on your parts of the game that work for you. So you need to work on your game and what fits for your game.
Yeah, yeah. But it needs to be said again. I mean, you were in the thousands, weren't you? And then what's it, 3 months, a few weeks over the summer, you were back to 600, and it was just
Mhm.
absolutely remarkable. I mean, it was a final, it was a title, and it was just a phenomenal run. And you were facing a form player that was winning for fun at that level and destroying everyone, and you were set down against her, and
Mhm.
reset. You got the job done, and it was just it's really inspiring. And I think that is this whole section is all about dealing with adversity. I just think that's a massive example of it. I think it really is, and it's overcoming all of those demons inside, and yeah, it's fighting because there would have been dark moments too. There would have been moments where I mean, to get to a final, to lose a final, part of you must be frustrated that you've lost the final, but then to lose early in the next tournament, that's another thing that people don't really
Yeah,
appreciate enough. It's just
that was
because you,
that was even more frustrating than losing in the final, right?
well, because you must feel even if you get. I mean, I lose in the first round every week, so I don't know what it's like, but Even if you get to a final, you must be
Mhm.
disappointed that you've lost, but you must be thinking form wise, here I go, I'm on top of the world. I'm going to do it next week because it's almost like the next logical step. It's I get to a final next week, I win a title, but then the same person comes along and knocks you out. So to do it, you must go. You talk about your mountain. You must fall off of it. You must be on the peak of it at one moment and then tumble off, and then yeah. But it's the key thing with dealing with adversity is dusting yourself off after that, and it's how you respond to not just the good things, but when you do lose to that same player in the next tournament in the second round, and your emotions have gone from the top to the bottom just like that. It's how you reset and go again, and that must be hard too because if you lose early in a tournament, it's almost like you've got those extra days, haven't you? You've got the rest of the week where the tournament continues, where you can choose to go on to the next place or maybe go home, or but it's almost like it's not something it's factored in, is it? But if you lose late in a tournament,
Mhm.
maybe in a final or in a semi-final, as disappointing as it is, that must be it's a good thing in a way because you know that in a few days' time you've got a chance to like a second chance, you've got a chance to redeem it. But losing early must be a killer. I think it must, it's just because you've
Yeah,
got
losing,
time to think.
yeah, losing early is quite hard.
Mm.
Yeah, but then you have to reset, right? Because there is no other chance, and then you have to learn from every defeat and put it the next in your put it in your experience, and then use it for the next match and next tournaments. So yeah, you have two options. You have the first option, which is easy, like to bury yourself and then not talk to anyone for 2 3 days, and then you have the second option, which I think works much better. You have to go and practice. The second day, you have to go out there and work out and practice what you need to practice. So then you have a better chance the following week.
Yeah, and I suppose everyone does need that processing period, don't they? I think you've got to sometimes you've got to allow the pain to run through you and to give yourself time to maybe not respond immediately to a match where you've lost. If you especially if you're disappointed with your own performance, I think you need maybe a few hours or maybe a day or so just to allow it all to sink and to reset. But
Yeah,
again,
I
you quite a
mean,
lot.
the best would be to have just a few hours and then to reset, right? You don't need to think about it too much all over again and to suffer from it.
And I suppose again, defeats are different for different reasons, aren't they? I mean, it could be an opponent's just too good, and it's just one of those days where you go out there and you do everything you possibly can, and you haven't really done anything wrong. You've just been beaten by a better player who's having a magic moment and finding the lines every time they hit the ball, and it's just are in the zone, and you're defending as much as you can, trying to get an opportunity, but you're not able to make any impact. And I think those ones you've got to let go and just think, fair enough, I'll keep working hard, but also there's defeats where maybe you know that you've not had the energy, and it could be all the things we talked about earlier. It could be travel, it could be illness, it could be anything like that, and it's yeah, those are the ones that are probably a bit harder to manage because you probably feel a bit disappointed in yourself. You probably feel that I should have done better, I should have done better. But yeah, there's so many different reasons, isn't there, when you go through that process period.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You have different kinds of defeats.
Mm.
So one feels worse, and another one can feel quite fine because it depends on who are you playing, right? It
Yeah,
depends because if you're playing a better ranked, and then if you're playing a top 100 and then you play a good match, you can get a lot of confidence from that match. But then if you lose from someone who's not good ranked, you can lose a lot of confidence. So yeah, it's every match is different. Every opponent is different. So you need to treat different, and you need to make different tactic every match. So yeah, it's everything every day is different.
Yeah. We wandered into the final section, which is all about psychology, and I always find that fascinating. I think how important it is to, and again, this doesn't have to apply to tennis. This can be for everything. It's like I think people naturally want to be a nice person. They want to be they want to be popular. They want to sort of do well by others. But it's there's also a side where you've got to be maybe a bit more selfish. You've got to be a bit more brutal. And I suppose
Mhm.
there is a balance. I mean, can can you be too nice to be a top player, or does it? Can you compartmentalize it? How does it? How do you see that working? Do you feel that? I mean, I think of players like someone like a Zonga or Sabine Lisicki, always sort of smiling, and renowned for that sort of bubbling personality, and it's displayed, and it's sort of, they're very much loved in the matches. But is there an element that they might need to be a bit more brutal at times? Do you find?
Mhm. Well, a tennis player needs to be a bit egoistic, a bit selfish, because you are alone on court, so you need to do your best, and you need to care about yourself, and it's all about yourself, like to perform to perform good in a match, you need to be 100% mentally, physically, uh, ev- every part of you needs to be 100% there. So you cannot let anyone and anything affect you. So that's why everything, like you have to be a little bit selfish. But yeah, I don't know if brutal, but you gotta make the difference. You have to make the difference when you're playing the match. The person you are, the player you are, the athlete you are in the match, and then the person you are off court. So you need to make this difference, because off court, I would say, like, you don't need to be, but you need to be yourself. You need to be a good person. And on court, you have to be a fighter. Uh, you have to fight, and you have to do what you need to do in order to win. Like anything it takes, you need to be there for yourself.
Very much so. And again, one of your articles, the Court Chronicles, the blog that we mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
you talked a lot about pressure,
Yeah.
and there's, and I must say, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for like Billie Jean King and everything that she's done specifically for equality in tennis, and I think that speaks for itself and it lives in history. And I still think there's a lot more that can be done regarding like mergers and prize money, but that's another story. But I
Hmm.
do find he's synonymous with this expression of, well, not expression, but phrase, um, pressure is a privilege. And
Yeah.
you've written a lot about that in an article, and I personally, I don't like it. I don't, because my view of pressure is very different, and I think we talked earlier about these superhumans who live in a different universe with tennis,
Yeah.
and also as good as Billie Jean King was, she was of her time, and the sport has moved on so much. There's the
Hmm.
tour ruling, there's more events, there's different equipment, players, there's more science behind their routines and their diets. And it's not the same tennis as what was played in Billie Jean King's era. And also we've talked about different opponents, different. I I think if a young player, and this is my view only, that's the world we live in at the moment. But I think a young player reading a quote like that from a hero, for me, I think it sends a bit of a dangerous message. I think that's
Hmm.
if you, it's almost like in some ways you could read it as you're struggling out there, but you're lucky to be there. You're lucky to be there, and it's like not really. I mean, it's a vocation. I've worked all my life for it. I'm working really hard, but I'm not ready to win this match. And to say pressure is a privilege for me, it sounds a bit sort of dismissive. I don't think, and I know a lot of players take that in, and yeah, it's only my view for what it's worth. I do question it though.
Yeah, you mean, I mean, as you said, tennis has changed a lot and the level has increased so much over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
So, you go out there and you just want to play your best tennis, but the other one comes with a good tennis as well. So it's tough to win every match. It's tough. Of course, there is a favorite in every match, but I wouldn't say like you go if you're the favorite in a match, you wouldn't feel you don't need to feel the pressure so much because the level is so like it's so like it's there, the both of the level of
mm,
the players, and you just need to go out there and play your tennis. As I said before, focus on what you are practicing, focus on your way of playing, focus on what you need to do on court, because then you have a better chance to win. So, yeah, I mean, of course, there are athletes that feel pressure in a way, and there are athletes that feel pressure in a different way. So you cannot really compare everyone's feelings. So yeah, you cannot really be general in what you say. Like pressure is a privilege. Of course, it's if you get to top 10, then you feel privileged to have the pressure because you're one of the best and you're one of the great ones. So
yeah,
yeah, that's a privilege to be there as a top player.
yeah, yeah, and exactly. And there's still, at the end of the day, there's still two players on the court, one on each side of the net, and they're both feeling the same things. They're both nervous. They're both going through all of the things that we've talked about in this hour, and they're both experiencing the same. But you're only one of them. You're one of the two, and you want to win, and you expect to win, and it's easy to forget the opponent is almost like a mirror image of that, and it's like one of them has to win. It's like one of them has to win, and equally one of them has to lose, and that's
Yeah,
how you. There may be a favourite, there may be one who, like you say, is higher ranked or more experienced, but that's not always the way. And it's yeah, it's a sport. It's a one-on-one sport where one player wins and one player loses, and you don't win them all. You want to, you win, but you don't win them all. And yeah, it's just.
yeah,
But again, I do stress that she is a hero and she has done a lot for equality. But
mm,
I have to agree with what everyone always says. There'd be a boring world if that was true. Um, Also, I think one thing that this it's a horrible part of tennis, which is something certainly Billie Jean King wouldn't have had to deal with. But there's this theory of social media abuse now, which I
mhm,
think at this stage, well, I mean, it was never at a stage when it was acceptable, but it's got to a point where it's just gone completely insane. It's believed to be attributed to gambling, which is the common opinion, but it's happening now that the players that we've talked about, the junior players as young as sort of, 15, 16, starting on tour, someone's daughter, going into this journey that we talked about earlier, for the first time. And I'm sure there's like parents watching and following tennis.
mhm.
But to be subject to what they get on their own Instagram and Facebook pages is just utterly insane. And it's the most sort of foul abuse that you could imagine. And that's something that no one should have to put up with. And some players have spoken out about it quite recently, and there's Kasatkina and Caroline Garcia, but it never seems to come to much. It makes the headlines for a short time, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of real actions that follow up. And I don't feel that ITF and WTA in particular do. I mean, you'll know this more than me. They don't seem
Yeah,
to support
I
players.
can see. I can see more and more players posting about this on social media, so someone can do something about it. But I don't know if they are actually doing something. I don't know. I didn't see anything happening about it. So yeah, but I mean, personally, I'm just taking it. I don't know. For me, it's funny somehow when they send you this kind of messages, and then you see the life-threatening messages. It's quite, for me, it's quite funny because I don't know. These people have a little bit of of drama and of some traumas in their life that they have time to send you this kind of messages, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know what actually the ITF and WTA are doing about it, but I hope they will, and I can see more and more players posting about it.
Yeah, I just thought it's sharing it, isn't it? And it's speaking out against it. But it just seems to be excessive, and it seems to be. I I think a lot of people tend to use multiple accounts too. It's like that's how much time they've got on their hands that they'll probably post 100 and I've known this because I've blocked certain people that have done it and then
Yeah.
several others go at the same time. So
Mhm.
taking the time to create multiple accounts to target one player.
Yeah,
So while it's
exactly.
not really one angry person, they're creating
Exactly.
messages, which again must feel horrible from the
Hmm.
recipient.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. They are just yeah. They don't have. They have too much time in their life to do this.
Yes, very much so. Well, I think that's pretty much the points and the areas that we were going to sort of talk
Perfect.
about. So, I
Perfect.
mean,
Yeah.
anything that
And
you've
I'm gonna post soon another article, so I hope everyone will read. So yeah, I mean, everyone who wants to find more about this life on tour, I have my blog, and you know where to find it. It's Oana Simion. So yeah, and I hope for another year successful on tour, right?
it will be a very successful year. No, you're going to get in the top 200.
Yeah, we'll see, but we are working on it.
So when is the new article? Because I love these. So is that going to be this side of New Year, or do you not know yet? Because it's
Um, Mm, One of I don't know if this week, but maybe the next week I will have more time because I'm gonna travel next week, so I'm gonna have long flights. So I'm gonna take the time to write more.
yes, very much so. And it's America next, isn't it? That's the
Yes.
destination ITF.
Yes, I'm gonna go to Florida next week on 30. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm starting in Florida with two 35s and one 75, and yeah, um, it's a nice start of the year.
Yeah. So I wish you the very best of luck with those tournaments, and that will. I hope you have certainly a start to the year like you had in the middle of this year, because if you do, you will be absolutely flying.
Think,
It'd be right
yeah,
up there. Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, it's about that. And there we go. Success, Joanna.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and I hope we will do one more in the future, right?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. I'd love to be speaking to you as a top 200 player in the next few months.
Yeah, I hope so. I would love that too. Thank you.
And have a very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and to everyone.
Yeah. And you've got Christmas at home as well, which must be amazing. So that's great too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thanks very much, Joanna. Take care
Thank
and
you.
all the very
Thank
best. I'll see if I can
you
turn
too. Bye.
it.